Hi, everyone. My name is Peyton Lauderdale. I'm one of the co-founders of Gathering Hope, and I want to welcome you to Slaying the Stigma. Today, I have Chelsey Schnell, and she is the founder of Evermore Blooms, which is another nonprofit. So it's fun to get to talk to another nonprofit founder, person to person. And I think we'll kind of get into some of that and how it correlates with our story and what we do and what we're passionate about. But thank you so much for being here, Chelsey.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
I think this is going to be a fun, not fun necessarily, but
I know what you're saying.
But I can tell that we have, I think this is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
So Chelsey, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, a little bit about your family, and then after that, just launch into your story and share as much as you're comfortable sharing.
Perfect. Thank you. So my name is Chelsey. I live in South Dakota, and I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Donald, which is a bizarre thing.
That's so fun.
I know you're not the same person that you were in high school. So it's been interesting and fun and challenging to get to know the new versions of ourselves as we grow. And then I have 5 kiddos. So my first, Owen, is 9. And then we miscarried our second child, Ava Grace. And that was in 2015. And then we had our rainbow Oliver. He is turning 6 next week, and I am not okay. And then we miscarried our next. So we have a pattern of sorts that I tried to rebuke, but it's our pattern. We lost Orion Job, and that was in 2017. And then we had our second rainbow, our baby girl, Annie, and she is 3.5.
Okay.
So I work full time and run Evermore in every spare minute I can find. I don't do it by myself. We have an incredible team. And that's kind of who I am, but in a short period.
Awesome. I want to tell you that these names that you chose are so beautiful. And I would love for you to share, maybe as part of your story, how you chose those names.
Yeah. So it was actually pretty intense. I left a really toxic job in fall of 2014 and started working at a Christian organization. And I wouldn't have called myself a Christian at that time. I grew up in the church, was raised Catholic, but was very, very far from any kind of relationship with God. And one of my best friends put in a good word for me for this job. And I remember my interview, the lady that interviewed me said a prayer before the meeting. And I was like, oh my goodness, I am not in the right spot. This ain't it. But I was like, I really need a new job. So I got the job, obviously, and started there in October. And then in January, my husband and I were actually coming out of a really, really tough season in our marriage. Okay. And, what better way to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound than let's have a baby, because that'll solve all of our problems. And I still had been working there for about 3 months and, prayers at every meeting. And I was just like, oh yeah, I got prayer requests. But, in the back of my head, I was like, sure, it can't hurt. Right. But I didn't really believe in it. And then we got pregnant in January with Ava, and it was kind of a whirlwind. It's kind of one of those things where none of us like to realize that, look back and see the plan for everything. But it's one of those things where I'm just like, man, we truly would have been putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And God had so much work to do in my heart. That Ava was the biggest blessing. Like, it was the most painful thing. And for me, when I lost Ava, I was surrounded by these people at this Christian organization who were truly just disciples. And it was at that moment where I was like, okay, I don't really know if I believe all this stuff. I really don't. But I do know that, what I've been taught is that babies go to heaven, right? And I'm like, I need to see her again. So purely out of my own stubbornness and just desire to be like, this can't be it. This can't just be, I never see her again. I decided that I was going to start following Jesus. And so I just dove in and was like, all right, I'm just going to believe that it's true. And that day in itself, was really intense. Peyton knows this, but I feel like it's important for people who are watching and listening. So we're actually coming up on the anniversary of that day in just a couple of days. So this time years ago, I was walking through my miscarriage. And just for the record, Peyton asked me if it was okay to record, and I said yes.
So I'll tell you something that I have told every person, and I have to remind myself who has come on this podcast and shed tears. I feel like the Lord, he told me this probably like 4 or 5 years ago, that anytime, because I hate crying in front of people, but I'm a tear person. Like I cry all the time. I don't like crying in front of other people. But what I have found is there's like this ministry of tears, and I don't know where that phrase came from. I should probably look that up. But anytime you cry in front of someone else, they needed to see those tears.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it helps people feel like tears are okay, which they are. And I'm not alone. I'm not the only person who's wept over my children. So hold that as you share.
Thank you. I needed to gather my breath for a second. So that day is actually very important though, because it was one of the first times I really felt a close physical connection to Jesus. So I started spotting on a Thursday night. And it was very, very, I'm just going to get into it. This is real life.
I love that you are, because people want to hear what you have to say. And I prayed before this conversation that whatever we would say would glorify God. And so I know what you're prepared to say is something that even if it's just one other mom, she needs to hear.
Yes. So started spotting Thursday night. It was very, very dark blood. And of course, Dr. Google said, that can be normal. I was about 6 weeks along, so very early, but felt so pregnant and so many, positive pregnancy tests, all the things. And started spotting Thursday, and then Friday it picked up a little bit. So I called my doctor and I said, can I come in? Can I check on things? And she said, yeah, but we can't get you until Monday. And part of me feels like they probably knew what was happening and didn't want to say it. And part of me just feels like they maybe couldn't get me in until Monday.
Yeah.
And then Friday, I told my coworkers, the ones who I'd been praying with, but not really believing in anything, that, I was pregnant and I had started spotting. So it was just covered in prayer. And Saturday, the bleeding picked up to a point where I was like, this is not good. This is not normal. I remember my oldest son had swimming lessons that day. And it's like when you get a new car, everyone has the same car type of thing. We went to his swimming lessons and there was just pregnant women everywhere. And I remember telling my husband, I'm like, there are pregnant women everywhere. And he was so sweet. And he's like, yes, and you're one of them. Like, he was so encouraging. And I was like sitting there, obviously just bleeding through my son's entire swimming lesson.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And then Sunday, I was a newborn photographer for 11 years professionally, and Sunday I had a newborn session. So I was taking pictures of a baby and then just taking breaks and just telling them like, oh, I drank a bunch of water, as I'm like, and I was actually in their home. And so I'm in their bathroom trying to care for myself as I'm miscarrying. And it was after that session, I left and I called my mom. And she didn't even know I was pregnant at that point. And I said, I think I'm having a miscarriage. And that had never really happened in our family. Like, it was not a thing that we'd ever experienced together.
Okay.
So by Monday, I knew I was obviously having a miscarriage, and I went to work. My appointment was scheduled for 12:30 for an ultrasound. And around 10:30 that morning, I went to the bathroom, and you can't use a tampon or anything. And so I just sat on the toilet and I scrolled my phone and I just let myself bleed. Cause I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? I just sat there for a few minutes, and I went to wipe, and it's a mess when you're miscarrying. There's bright blood, there's dark blood clots, there's all this stuff. And I remember seeing just this tiny little speck of gray. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's the baby. And I didn't want to flush it. I didn't know what to do. So I wrapped it in some toilet paper, put it in a pocket of my hoodie. I still have that hoodie. I tried to wear it about 6 months ago and I was like, no, that's not something we can wear. That just sits in the closet.
I have outfits like that in my closet.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I wrapped the baby in some toilet paper. I went to like a little break room. I got a cup with some water and a spoon. I went back to the bathroom. I gently put it in the water. And as soon as the baby hit the water, it was like textbook, like the little seahorse. And I was like, oh my God, I am looking at my baby. And at the moment, obviously traumatic and everything, but I just was in awe. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a 5-week, 4-day baby that I'm looking at. Like, this is incredible. Like,
what a miracle, right?
The most amazing thing. And so at the organization I worked at, there was a staff of pastors, every denomination you could think of. And so I didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go find a pastor. And so I walked through this building and I remember before I did that, I called the doctor. We had like these little phone booths in our office. And I called and I said, I need to talk to a doctor right now. And the poor receptionist, bless her, she was like, okay. I just said, what are you looking for? I'm like, I don't know. I just need to talk to a doctor. I don't even remember how that conversation ended, but bless her. And so I went up and there was no pastors in their office. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I walked back to my area where I worked and a coworker met me and she could see like I was sweating, I was crying, I was a mess. And she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. And I walked a couple more steps and turned back and I said, my baby's in this cup. And then I just screamed. I don't know what sound came out of me, but I will never forget. So the friend who essentially got me that job, who put in a good word, she's been my friend since college. She came around the corner and then another friend came out. And I know now that like they came out before I screamed, but like in the moment I thought they were responding to me, but now they've said like, no, I didn't hear anything. I just walked at that very moment. I'm like, oh, okay, that's, not a coincidence at all. And so my friend Becky, who is now on the board for Evermore Blooms.
Okay.
She walked me into a room, and I just sobbed and cried and cried and cried. And another one of my friends went and got my stuff. And they took me, my manager, who was so sweet, and another friend who like top 5 list of people who brought me to Jesus. They took me into a prayer room and prayed over me. And when they left to go get my things in my car, they're just like, you stay here. Don't go anywhere. In that moment, I'm sitting in this prayer room and there's Jesus on the wall and the cross and a Bible on the table and my baby in a cup next to an open Bible. And I remember in that moment saying to God, are we even for everything I've ever done, for denying you, for the mistakes I've made? Are we even? And I knew as soon as those words came out of my mouth, that was not what was happening. That was not what was going on here. And thankfully, I was surrounded by people in the coming months to sort out those thoughts. So Becky took me home. And like I said, I was a photographer for 11 years. And so in my head, I'm like, gosh, I really want to take some pictures. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? Like, who takes pictures of their dead miscarried baby? This is dumb. This is weird. This is like, what are you going to do with these pictures, right?
Mothers do.
I know. Thank you. And Becky, she just sat with me quietly for a while and she said, Chelsey, do you think you should take some pictures? And I was just like, oh, thank God. Someone gave me permission. Like someone affirmed that wasn't a crazy thought. And so I just remember taking those pictures and I just poured my heart out. I was like, this is what I do. Like that was my profession at the time. And I was like, this is my baby. I'm going to take pictures of her just like I would any other baby, And now those pictures are obviously one of my most treasured memories. Not a lot of people get to see those. Those are,
right.
for me, right. But they are incredible. And I have shown them to a few people and they're just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm like, I know.
A precious little life. Like it's.
Yes. And so later that night, obviously my husband came home and he had a pastor come over and, pray over her. And we weren't really a part of a church at that time. So it was just
Okay.
a pastor. I was like, whatever, somebody, I don't even remember how I got connected with him, but I remember that night I told my husband, I said, we're going to church this weekend. I don't care where we go, but we have to go. And that's where we started going to our church that we're still a part of now, 7 years later. But I also told him that night, I said, we have to name this baby. I'm like, I don't want to call it forever. Like, I see it. It's here. Like, this is real. And so we named her Ava Grace. And I had a list of names in my phone for this baby.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
Yes. And it's always so complex. And I know that there's other moms that relate to this because it's come up on Evermore. Not wanting to use one of your favorite names is like the most conflicting feeling in your heart, because you're like, I'm a terrible person. But I was like, well, that one's my favorite. I don't want to use that one. And I think at that moment, it's because you feel like you'll never be able to say that name. Like, you want to say your favorite name all the time. And so
All the time. Yes.
Yeah. You don't want to use up your favorite. But I came across Ava, and I'm very, very big into like name meanings. And so of course, I went to Google, and Ava means life. And I was like, okay, done. And, little did I know then, that it was more about her, less about her life and more about my life, like, finding my life in Jesus. And so Ava, I always say the least of what she was a miscarriage. She truly led me to Jesus, and I'm so thankful for her. Okay. So then, I had my rainbow baby Ollie. Was just the most beautiful birth. I had a doula, and I remember telling her, my number one goal during his birth is to encounter Jesus again in like a physical way.
Yeah.
And that was definitely granted to me, and it was so wonderful.
Doulas are life-changing people, aren't they?
Yes. Oh, bless doulas. I'm a trained doula. I'm not practicing. I do lots of things, but so yes, doulas are incredible. And then we had our Ollie, all was good. And we knew we wanted another one, and we got pregnant again. I kind of say we don't have a problem getting pregnant. We just have a problem staying pregnant. And none of them are good. Like, we can't get pregnant is crappy, and we can get pregnant, can't stay pregnant is crappy. It all sucks. None of them is worse than the other.
So true.
Yeah. So we got pregnant easily with Orion again. And, he was a chemical pregnancy, I'm fairly certain. But me and my beliefs, life begins at conception, and that was my baby. And his loss was so incredibly different. I remember I ended up going to my ultrasound that day when I lost Ava, and they confirmed, obviously, nothing there. And I knew it because I already had her, in a cup. And I remember leaving that ultrasound appointment, and the nurse, I know she was trying to be kind, but she said, your body's doing a really great job of getting rid of everything. Oh, and I know she was trying to say, like, you're not going to need a DNC. Like, and I didn't know what DNC was at that point, to be perfectly honest. But I just looked at her, and I was like, in my head, all I could think was, my body's doing a great job of getting rid of my baby. That's not what my body's supposed to do. And so when I lost Orion, it was earlier. So, I mean, lots of women would think, oh, my period was just late, but we were trying, and I got positive tests and already started to feel pregnant, and then just started bleeding. And I was like, gosh, dang it. Ava, I refused to acknowledge anger with her loss. Like, I just didn't want her life to be associated with anger in my heart. And Orion, I was like, I know God now. I know he already knows I'm angry. And if I say I'm not, I'm just lying to him. And so I had some chats with God. I was like, you know what? Like, I shared Ava's story, and I was very open about it. I was like, I'm already using this story of mine to bring you glory and to show your goodness. Like, why do I have to do this again? Why are you making me do this again? And I know now, it's because not everyone's miscarriage story is an Ava story. Like, that changed my life, changed who I am, changed every fiber of my being. Orion, of course, changed me and impacted me. But I had heard from moms who were like, yeah, I had a miscarriage and I'm okay. I'm okay. And I'm like, how are you okay? Like, how are you just okay? And after Orion, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, this sucks. And I am so sad, but I am okay. And I know that the only reason I was okay was because I knew God and I knew exactly where Orion was going. I had no doubts about it. I had nothing to figure out like I did with Ava. But his loss was so different in the way as well, like where I felt my body was discarding Ava. A chemical pregnancy is like, for those that don't know, the egg is fertilized, things start growing, and whether it's, a few seconds or a few days, something is not right. And the baby itself stops growing, but your body still is producing like the sac. And like you think you're pregnant, your body still thinks you're pregnant. So you're getting positive tests. And so of course, Dr. Google, I found it actually really comforting that I could find information on this early of a loss, because I was like, oh, it's called something. Whereas Ava was just like, you just lost your baby. And I'm like, what? I need to know why and how. And so Orion, it was actually very comforting that I could read about, the science of what happened and understand it. And I realized that instead of my body discarding my baby, it was almost like my body was trying to hang on to my baby that was no longer growing. And it was like, okay, good job, uterus. Like you tried so hard. And I appreciate that. And so, yeah, my little buddy, Orion, I always joke, I'm just like, we named our babies and, assigned genders. I had a dream that Orion was a boy, like a very vivid dream. And Ava, my son, Owen, at the time, he was like, Mom, it's a girl. And I was like, all right, we're going with it. But I always joke I'm going to get to heaven and Ava's going to be like a 17-year-old teenage boy and Orion's going to be a girl and they're going to be like, Mom. And, and I know I'm going to get to heaven and, like Jesus, like I'll get to my babies, but like Jesus. But you know what I mean?
You don't have to say that here. We know.
Like I will be awestruck by Jesus, but also Ava in the corner, like, let's change my name now. But yeah, so Orion, was just truly a testament to, the foundation I had set in my heart in Jesus and just like having so much peace and knowing, it's going to be okay. And then it was just so different. I definitely was angry. I definitely was like, I don't want to do this again. I don't understand why I have to do this again. But yeah, they've both just changed me so much. And so I'll just keep going if that's okay.
Absolutely.
This segues nicely into the next bit. So it was 2017, which was the 2-year anniversary of losing Ava, February 9th. And I just posted on Facebook that, this day sucks. It's hard and I'm sad and I miss my baby and this is awful. And later that afternoon, flowers showed up at my door. And I was like, who sent these? And there was no name. Just a very, very kind and sweet note about just someone saying like, Ava's so proud of you. You were such a good mom to her. And there was no name. I eventually did find out who it was. And it was actually just a photography acquaintance, like in the industry. And I was floored by that. Like we were not friends, like we knew each other. But until I found out, I literally remember thinking, did these come from Jesus? Like who sent these flowers? And it was so powerful and obviously left an impression on me. And then finding out it was just, an acquaintance honestly meant more, I think.
I completely agree. Yeah.
It was just someone who saw I was hurting and took action to care for me. And it wasn't, my spouse or my mom or, a family member. And so that was in 2017. I eventually left that job and then went part-time. So I could focus on photography, but I went part-time working at my church in kids ministry. Okay. And it was in 2019, the end of 2019, our church announced what they were calling the Run Project. And essentially they were like, if you have an idea that you want to do and you need money, submit your idea and we'll award you up to $2,000 to do your idea. And I have literally tried to scroll back in my text with my husband to see when this idea started. And my phone crashes every time because it was so long ago. But I remember texting my husband once years ago saying, babe, what would it look like if there was an organization that existed that sent flowers to moms on those days that are really hard surrounding her miscarriage? And if you know me, I'm kind of coming up with new ideas every day. So my husband's like, I don't know, babe, like whatever. I'm just like,
Carol over in the next room. Yeah. She is the person that like handles every idea that I throw at the wall.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
everyone else like gets to like see the effects of just the good ones. There's so many.
Right. And so he's like, I don't know, babe. I don't know. I'm like, man, that'd be really cool. That'd be cool. Something like that existed. And so, excuse me, when that idea came out, or when that program or whatever you call it, I was on staff. And of course, we're in our all staff meeting and we're being challenged, like, what's your idea? What's your idea? What's your idea? And I had this idea for a long time. And at the time I was working part-time, full-time photography, a mom to, let me see how many at that time, a mom to 3 at that time, 3 living babies and a wife and just busy, busy, busy. And so I'm like, I can't do this right now. I cannot do this right now. But we kind of went around as a staff and was like, what's your idea? And I remember I was sitting in like the second row of like about 5 people or 5 rows. And I said, okay, it's like, I have this idea. And I was like, I just want to make something like that. I just said, this is what I want to do. This is the days we want to focus on. And yeah. And I just said it and the room was silent. And I was like, it's either really good or really bad. And someone in the back, I don't know who it was like, Chelsey, you have to do that. And I was like, okay, here we go. Like it's out in the open now. Now we got to do it. Right. So that was one of the first ideas presented. So I was lucky enough that my church put my idea on the website when they like announced it, at service. Okay. And it just said, if you want to be a part of this, email Chelsey.
Very cool.
And I got so many emails. And to be honest, I was very like, who are you? You don't get to touch this. Like, this is my idea. And it's very personal, right? Like it's for my babies. And I was like, you don't get to come in like this. This is no touching, like no touching. And now, oh my gosh, I just am so grateful because God was like, this is the person you need on this silver platter. And this is the other person you're going to need on this silver platter. Like, thank you, Jesus. And so we had a lot of people start in the beginning. We had a few get pruned out very healthily, like nothing bad, but it was just like, this isn't the right fit, or they were like too fresh in their own grief that they're like, oh, I can't. I'm like, that's fine. But now we have a team that is just an extension of my heart. Each of these people just love what we're doing. And so we officially launched Evermore Blooms in March of 2020. What a time to be alive. I always say.
Yes. I mean, like the timing for that when people were so alone.
I know. But it was how I had time to make it happen. Right. Cause the world was slower. And so we launched in March, 2020. Our church said, we'll give you $500. And then if you can raise 1,500, we'll give you another 1,500 for the full 2,000. Okay. And so we put it out there and we blew past 1,500 just from friends and family. And so then they gave us the rest and, we just started, and it started locally, like, just sending, we're the biggest city in South Dakota, which isn't saying much, but we have a lot of like suburbs and things that are close by. So we just started locally. And then the account, I had a miscarriage, Jessica, she shared about us in her stories. When was that? In, I think, January, what year is it? 2022. She shared about us in January 2021. Okay. And we blew up on Instagram, and we started getting requests for across the country. And I'll never forget the first day we sent okay, so let me back up. So one of the very, very important things that we were brainstorming when we started this was, in my heart, I was like, okay, so we're going to send these flowers. Great. Wonderful. Mm-hmm. But I remember the thing that was hard for me was I got those flowers and then the flowers died. And I was like, this sucks. And like, I saved one, but it like falls apart. And I was like, how do we make these last? Because I don't want a mom to be sad and, get these beautiful flowers. And then she's like, cool. My flowers died. My baby died. Everything died, Yeah. I was like, how do we make these last? And so I was like, what if we take a picture? Like that's instantly where my mind went to. I was like, what if we take a picture of the bouquet and we get that to her somehow? And I was meeting with a friend, just brainstorming. And she's like, I know a gal that does hand painted wooden flowers. Okay. And she's like, what if you like put one of those in every bouquet? And I was like,
beautiful idea.
Brilliant. And so in every one of our bouquets that we send out, we find a florist, we send them a hand-painted wooden flower,
Okay.
a pre-printed card with a set message. And so when a mom gets a bouquet, there will always be one flower that she can keep. And so I remember when we sent that first flower to Washington, D.C. was our first like out of local area. And I
Oh,
was just like,
wow.
it's happening. And we were so excited. We're like, we're national now. And I was like,
I know that feeling very well.
yes. But now we have sent, I was going to grab stats before we met, but now we have sent bouquets to moms, I think in 30 states, including like Alaska, which is nuts to me. We've actually had requests from Canada and Ukraine, which has been incredible. And we can't fulfill them. There's like laws and but it's amazing that it's reaching that far. And then, so last year we launched a store where we have items that are designed by myself or my friend Becky kind of helps me with the artwork of things. And so we sell these items that fund our mission. Yeah, it has been, we're coming up on 2 years and I'm just like,
and they've flown by, right?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, how does this even happen? And just the reach that we've had. And of course, this community is unlike anything else and are incredible. And it's just been amazing. And every time someone's like, thank you for doing this work. I'm like, we are so humbled to do this work. Like none of us are qualified. None of us we don't know what we're doing. We are just doing our best to keep up and care for these moms and just doing whatever we can to just be intentional with that and just care for them.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing
a lot. Sorry.
Your babies and, your inspiration for doing what you do. I know that, that like what we were saying before we started recording today is that our stories are what fuel us and give us that passion to keep going through those really, really hard times. And, I want to ask you, what's been the most surprising part of all of this journey so far?
Yes. So for me personally, I was surprised at how much I still needed support. Like when I started, so at first Evermore, like our Instagram was very just like general, just our organization back end. And then we kind of talked as a board and we're like, you know what, this doesn't feel right. Like this is such a personal topic. And I was saying like, I got stuff to say, like I'm ready to like be the face of this. And so when we made the decision for me to kind of be the face of Evermore, and I started showing my face more and talking about my stories, that's really also when we blew up. It was a combination of things, and I know it's just because women are like, yes, I relate to your story. And just the amount of love and support that I've gotten from strangers on the internet, I could not believe how much I needed that.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I was like, this organization running this and talking to these women is healing parts of my heart I didn't even realize were still hurting. And I think that goes to say, like, you got to talk about it. You have to, if you are hurting and maybe it's a therapist and maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's friends and maybe it's strangers on the internet.
Or all of them.
All of the above. Right. I just think like, you don't realize how much hurt is there and how much you have just been suppressing and numbing. And yeah, it hurts to dig it up and to open it. It hurts, but man, it just makes us such more graceful people and more understanding people and just more kind people to know that like, I was open about my story, but I don't think I even knew like how much I still needed healing and how much I needed community. In this. So that's been very surprising. And then just on like just like our organization wise, we've been told so many times, like, I've never heard of anything like this. Like we hear that from moms and we hear that from florists, or we call them, we're like, hi, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is our budget. Can you help? And they're always like, what? Like you do what? And so that gives me chills and a little bit of like, good job, self. Like you came up with something that no one else is doing. And we hear just all the time, like, this was a gap. Like there was nothing in
Yes.
place doing this before. And so for me, that has been surprising. I'm like, we can get in our heads when we want to start something about like, oh, someone's probably already doing it. I don't need to do it. And I definitely had those thoughts, especially when we started in March of 2020. I was like, no one freaking cares about this right now. The world is falling apart. And thankfully, Becky was like, this is the exact right time to do this.
It's the exact right time. I mean,
Yes.
if there was ever a time, that was it. And I can see that, not, like from this view back here, right?
Yeah.
But if we're going to be isolated, but here's what people were not thinking about, and only, being members of this sucky sisterhood type of community, right? People were still miscarrying, still having stillbirths, still losing their babies through all of that. And it was even more isolating than it typically is. We always feel alone at first until we meet someone else who says, yes, me too.
Yes.
And so what a wonderful time that God orchestrated that to happen.
Yes, it was perfect. It was truly perfect. And a lot of the moms we serve now are moms who went through loss during that time. And it was their stories. I'm just like, we can't compare stories. They all suck. But I think back and I'm like, if my husband wasn't able to be next to me in that ultrasound room, I can't even like wrap my head around it, because I would be broken. I would be so broken if he wasn't next to me. And so it's an honor to care for those moms that went through all of that alone. Oh, it makes my heart just ache, and it sets me on fire, and it makes me mad. And it just makes me like, we've got to do better. We have to do better for these moms. And
we say that around here all the time. Like,
oh my gosh,
like women deserve better than this.
Yes, we do. So yeah, it was truly perfect timing. So yes, it's just been surprising it's been surprising and humbling to be a part of something that literally did not exist before. Like, that's so cool. It's so amazing.
I love it. I love that. And I resonate with what you're saying.
Yes.
Chelsey, since this interview serves both as hope for other moms who are looking for just someone else that they can identify with a little bit of their story, but also to help break the stigma of pregnancy loss, what is something that you think the wider community needs to know about us?
Yes. So, it's interesting you said pregnancy loss. I always kind of feel a little bit of unrest with that term, to be honest.
Sure, there's no good terms for
they're really
anything that we do, right?
And I even struggle with like pregnancy and infant loss awareness month. I'm like, you can't be pregnant unless there is a baby growing. Yeah. So like the fact that we separate it it just doesn't sit well on my heart. And especially someone who I saw my baby at 5 weeks and 4 days, like that was my baby. It wasn't a pregnancy, Yeah. So you're exactly right. There's no good word, but I think the thing I want people to know is it's not a period. It's not just a thing that happens and you go on. A baby comes out of a mom, and we bring new mothers gifts and meals and all these things to care for her. But when a mom has a miscarriage, it's like, all right, we'll see you back at work tomorrow. Like, I'm like, a baby came out of her. It may have been a small baby, but her body still went through childbirth. And I say that knowing, like, obviously my 5-week miscarriage was different than my 41-week delivery with my son. Obviously, I know that. But we have to recognize that the amount of care we give a mom in postpartum is should be universal, whether it's postpartum,
I love that.
A 5-week loss or a 35-week loss or a 35-week, healthy baby boy or born. There's still postpartum care that needs to happen, not only physically, but mentally. Like the hormone shifts that happen in miscarriage moms are the same. They are the same as like a full-term loss. And so to pretend that, it's not as hard on her mentally and physically is just so not true. And so, yeah, we've got stuff, in the works, and you guys do a good job too, of just like dreaming up ways we can, fill those areas of, lack of care and lack of noticing, what moms
Yes.
need in that time. So, I just want to check my notes. I don't want to forget. Oh, and for us, the biggest thing has just been remembering those days. And that's, we get requests all the time from people, and they want the flowers sent right now. Like the mom's miscarrying right now, send them now. And we always coach them, that, we actually encourage you to send it on the anniversary of the loss or what would have been her due date, because those days will come. She knows exactly what those days are, but no one else does, or no one else remembers. And that's just because we're human and life goes on and we're all busy, and it's no one's fault, but I guarantee that mom knows. And so just being conscious of those days and not being afraid to ask what those days are, and just, she won't even remember you asked, honestly. But then when you show up on that day, it will make a world of difference for her. So yeah, just recognizing the physical and mental postpartum period for early lost moms, or, any lost mom. And then just remembering those days is so, so important.
Thank you for saying that. I love that. And I love your comment about pregnancy loss too. There's nothing like, we have to use the language that the outside world uses in order for people to understand like what a serious topic we're talking about.
Yes.
But I fully agree. Almost every time I type it out, that I'm like,
this doesn't feel right.
When I write a comma to describe another type of loss, I'm like, no. and like like when we have a gathering, you will hear me say, and then our table leaders are coached as well. Like, you will have women at this table who have experienced a 5-week, 4-day loss. And someone like me who has had a 41-week loss, and you're sitting at the same table. But you are both women who are surviving on this side of heaven without your child. And that is what you have in common. And that is what brings us together in this room. And so your stories are different, but your ache for your child is the same.
Absolutely. After my loss with Ava, I had a friend, she lost her baby at 40 weeks on her due date. She lost her during labor. It was awful, awful. And when I lost Ava, I really wanted to reach out to her because I knew that I just wanted to talk to someone. She was the only one I knew. She was the only one I knew at that time who had lost a baby at any stage. And I reached out to her, and I remember saying to her, Jess, I don't even feel worthy of talking to you. I was like, this doesn't feel the same. And she said to me, which really lit a fire in my heart, she said, Chelsey, it doesn't matter if your loss was 6 weeks or 36 weeks. You lost your baby. And to have a mom who had a full-term loss say that to me, just a lowly little miscarriage mom, I was like, yes, like that's how I feel. But I feel like everyone else in the world tells me I should not feel this sad. And so that was really powerful of her to say. And I just so appreciated her validating, my heartache, because I've said this on Evermore before. I'm like, you see those 2 pink lines and you've got the next 18 years planned out, like that's just like that. And it doesn't and it's so hard with early loss too, because, people will say, it's early, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I got less time with my baby. That's not helpful. Like I don't want a loss for anybody, but man, I didn't even get to know them. And then they were gone. Like, that's not fair. None of it's fair.
Fair.
But yeah, just, I don't want to call it the playing field or, anything like that, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's just like, it's all the same. It's all sucks. It really does. There's no other eloquent way to say it.
No, there's not. There's really not. We can try and put a bow on it, but it still is ultimately all just traumatic and difficult.
Yes.
That kind of leads me into my next question is, so I have heard you speak about Jesus countless times in the last hour that we've been talking.
Yes.
Where have you seen hope, and what is it that has helped you to heal?
Early in Evermore is kind of when we started to blow up. we had a delivery in like the Michigan area. Excuse me. And we reached out to a florist, we connected with her like we always had, and we were still very new. But I was talking to her, telling her what we did. And she kind of came after the fact that we were a Christian organization. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for her comments. I really, really am, because it made me realize that, a lot of times religion and Jesus can be very off-putting for people who don't understand it and who don't live in that place. And I was one of those people. Like, you prayed at my interview and I was so weirded out. And so it kind of shifted, like, how do we be the light and love of Jesus without shoving Jesus down people's throats before they're ready? That would then just push them away, right? Like, because we don't want to push them away. But I remember talking through it with my friend Becky, and I was like, this lady wants me to, I think she said at one point, like, maybe you just need to calm down on the Jesus.
Wow.
And it was a very kind conversation, and it was fine. And I remember telling Becky, I was like, I can't, like, if it weren't for Jesus, I wouldn't be here. Like, so a part of my Ava story, that I didn't feel like I could get through earlier. So that walk from the office where there was no pastors back to my desk, I had to go down this long, long hallway. And I remember walking down that hallway with my baby in a cup, and I literally felt like the hallway was spinning, like that NSYNC or Backstreet Boys video when like the hall is spinning. That's literally how I felt. I felt like I was just floating down this hallway. And I literally remember thinking, how are my feet moving right now? I don't understand how I'm even walking. And then we went to church that Sunday for the first time, and the pastor gave a message that was so freaking spot on. But in his prayer, I remember he said, we are thankful that we have a God who carries us when we cannot walk. And I lost it. I was like, I did not walk down that hallway. I was carried down that hallway. So for me, there truly is no complete healing ever that will happen on earth ever. Yes. But my hope is that I will get to heaven and be completely healed. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. And I cannot wait to see my babies whole. And like, I just cannot wait. I cannot wait to thank Jesus for carrying me down a hallway. Yeah. There's so much hope in that. And I just feel like this kind of story is truly impossible to navigate without the hope of Jesus. It really is.
That has been the case for me too.
Yeah. And if you don't believe in Jesus and you're walking this and you're just like, I'm just not like, we can help you. Humans, we can help you. Like, these organizations can help you. But there's really only one thing that's going to make you feel at peace over this. And yeah. Okay. And then healing. Jesus and therapy.
Yeah, they go well together.
We had a crew neck pre-order last fall, and one of the designs was Jesus and therapy. And it was like one of our lowest sellers that I did not even care, because I was like, I want that sweatshirt.
Well, I guess I just need to buy one if y'all have any left, because
we don't. It was limited edition. But I was like, I have to have that sweater because that's my life. Like, Jesus and therapy.
Yes.
But then also a major healing point for me was naming my babies. And I know not everyone does, not everyone feels like they need to. But I also just want to say, like, it's never too late. Like, I talked to so many moms who messaged me and they're like, I wish I would have named my babies. I'm like, you still can. Because the truth is they have a name. Like, our Heavenly Father knows their name and calls them by name. Yeah. So they do have a name. So maybe that's just the comfort you need. Like, your baby does have a name. But for me, it made it a lot easier for us to talk about them, to integrate them into our lives. Like, my kids know about them. And I think too, just being very clear with, especially for me, my spouse, my husband, Donald, he's always very, he's not perfect. Right. And that was kind of another thing I just wanted to say during this, like, it's okay if your spouse or your boyfriend or whoever you went through this with is not your person for this. Because while my husband loves me and he's sad that we lost a baby, he did not go through the physical thing of miscarriage. And so it's okay if they're not your person through it all. But he is so conscious about, like, if the kids get me a Christmas present, he'll always put from Owen, Ava, Oliver, Orion, and Annie. Like, he'll
Oh,
always do that.
I love that.
And just little things like that. And my sister made my kids some clay ornaments. And I remember saying to her, I was like, hey, would you mind like making me one for Ava and Orion? She's like, oh my gosh, of course. I'm sorry I didn't think of that. And I was like, it's okay, it's fine. But just having names for them and making them present has helped me so much. We get a birthday cake and sing happy birthday to them on my lost days, because technically the day that they came out of my body is the day they were born. It is their birthday. And it's also just a way to not like make that day easier, but just to find some joy in that day, like, yes, I lost them on those days, but like Ava specifically, I didn't find Orion. There was nothing to find. But it was the day I met Ava and I saw her and it was beautiful. Like, and I realized that seeing her was a miracle, like an absolute miracle. Like, not everyone gets to see that. And, but yeah, so naming them, celebrating them, integrating them into our daily lives. My family knows their names. The internet knows their names. Like, I wrote a letter to Ava. We had her cremated with some other items. And I got a ring made. They actually drilled a hole in it and then put some of her ashes in and sealed it up. So I wear that ring every day. I also have a ring for Orion. So those things too, like having something physical when your baby isn't here physically. And that's kind of why we started the store. But just having something. And I think that's a really good thing too. Like, if you're supporting someone who's going through a loss right now, get them something that they can hang on to. And I know that seems very materialistic, but it is so it's so hard to, leave the hospital empty-handed or just not have anything to show of that this happened. And so I think that can be super helpful. But yeah, just having those physical reminders, naming them, and just, I was going to say in the letter I wrote to Ava, I promised her I would tell the world about her one person at a time. And Evermore is just really my selfish way of doing that. It's just my way of doing that. And I got no shame about it. And I love it. And
I love that too.
I'm like, I'm just a mom trying to talk about her babies. That's the whole reason this thing exists. So yes, those things.
Speaking of Evermore, how can people tell us how people can find, if they want to send, an arrangement, how do they find you? And then how do they connect with you further after this interview?
Yes. So you can find us, evermoreblooms.org is our website. And from there, you'll find the links to send flowers. And so we, like I said, encourage people to submit the mom's info right away. So we have as much time as possible to work on the delivery request. We are just a small team of volunteers. And so the more time, the better. But you can go there to send flowers. And then you can choose to donate to cover the cost of the bouquet or not. And that's, why we do the store, to raise funds to pay for those things when people can't, donate, which is totally fine. And then I think we send them anonymously. And that was something that we established right in the beginning, partially because of what happened to me, feeling that did these come from Jesus moment? I want that for moms. But also just because we wanted to eliminate that barrier of, well, I don't really know her very well. This might be awkward, I'm just a coworker. We just wanted to eliminate that and make sure moms got cared for. So they are all sent out anonymously. So you don't have to, feel, and if you want to tell her you sent them, you can, but we don't, it stays anonymous. But yeah, so you can go to our website, and then we are on Instagram at evermoreblooms.org. And yeah, so our website and our Instagram is pretty much will get you wherever else you need to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsey, for sharing about your mission and your babies, your whole family. It was, I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay here.